Hi everyone, welcome to THT, and today we are going to talk about the Minneapolis Regional Qualifier, which is the last major tournament of the season, and the only regional qualifier happening in the US, and the second regional qualifier happening ever in Star Wars Limited. This video is sponsored by Card Market, the biggest marketplace to buy and sell cards in Europe. So first of all, let's take the basic. It happens in Minneapolis, USA. It was organized by Star City Game, and the coverage was done by McClunky Gaming, Take the Initiative, Late Night Gaming, and Sea Raptor. So huge thanks to those different YouTube channels for hosting and broadcasting the games. Unfortunately, they had quite a few internet connection issues throughout the event, but they did, I'm sure it's not their fault, they did everything they could, and they did obviously an amazing job at providing coverage for us so we could follow the tournament. So big shout out to them. It was a true 636 player tournament, the biggest Star Wars Unlimited event in the US, but still a lot smaller than the regional qualifier that happens in Lille, which had about 850 players if I remember correctly. So quite a bit different, quite a big gap between the two regional qualifiers between the US, which is, it coincides to the trends. Usually European tournaments are bigger than the one in the US. Mostly because obviously Europe is just a more populated country than the US, and also it's more concentrated. Like there's more players in a more smaller area, I think. So moving on, this is the overall meta. We'll see as you see the Sabine was the most played deck in a tournament. The 82 players playing Sabine. We had Kira with 60 players coming second. The biggest surprise in terms of attendance was Vader, Victor Squadron leader. 55 players brought the deck. I think the reason why this leader is so popular is because he's the new deck. That is probably the newest deck in the meta. He's a very cheap deck and budget deck to put together. It's relatively easy to play, and it's very powerful. So it has all the ingredients to see a lot of play. Doesn't necessarily mean that this converts into actual results, but it is definitely makes sense then. Then we had Han Solo Worth the Risk, which showed a tremendous amount of play. We thought a lot of Han 2 Data Vault is very popular in the US. I think it's much more popular in the US than it is in Europe. We also had a significant amount of Han 2 ECL. And and a couple of Han Blue, which we'll talk about a bit more later. We had then some Han 1, the Ray, obviously the good old A-Grain, vast majority of them being the Data Vault one. Then we got the Vader Darth Lord of the Sith, which is the first Vader from set 1, which shall play pretty much because it is indeed the most Vader Green is so Vader is the most I would say the most popular. It's obviously to shade the showcase and to try to get to the showcase. This is in all regional sector qualifier. You're always going to see Vader and Luke Skywalker specifically seeing more play than other leaders relative to their power level because of chasing the showcase and trying to get that very valuable showcase. Then we got Anakin, and then once again Boba 4, 31 players. Still, in my opinion, the most overplayed deck in the history of Star Wars Unlimited. There seems to be some sort of religion around this leader. There seems just people who are playing it no matter what. And it's not just a few people, it's a significant number of people. Just people love this leader, which I think, once again, doesn't say much about the power level of the leader, but does say a lot about the popularity of him as a character, and as popular is the indirect damage mechanic. So, then we got Quinlan, which is still on the decline. You can see his popularity has dropped drastically. Cat Bane also quite a bit on the decline. Luke Skywalker once again trying to chase the showcase. And then some Yoda, Palpatine. Bosk, not so popular as you can see here. Only 4 Bosk Blue in the entire tournament. And the majority of them were Data Vault. Data Vault, of course, overall extremely popular. We are very well into a Data Vault meta, as you can see. Then I go into the Amiral Piet, the majority playing red. I think people are acknowledging the fact that Piet Red is the best version of the deck. So we have And then we see Throne 3, Throne 4 Data Vault, which I think is a very underrated deck. It's very powerful. I think Throne 4 Blue is, Throne 4 Green is a very, very strong deck, especially against other control decks. It's kind of a soft control deck like Kira, but it's very good against other control deck. But it does this at the expense of aggro decks. It's a deck that is significantly worse against aggro. And yeah, that's basically it. We had a couple of hand Never Tell Me the Odds. Not a single one playing the Lake Town version. We saw Anselo Lake Town wrecking some tournaments. I think it was one player in particular who did very well with this deck. So, and yeah, that's pretty much the full breakdown. Then this is the conversion rate between day 1 and day 2. As you can see, the best conversion gain comes down to Ray Green. Ray Green, still a very, very solid, very, very good deck. Huge conversion rate. I think there's a lot of good players who decided to pick up that deck for the tournament, and they did very well. Then Anselo Worth the Risk with an amazing conversion rate. Hand 1 also did that. Another one that is maybe a little bit more surprising is Cad Bane. Cad Bane with a very, very solid conversion rate from day 1 to day 2. Proving that the deck is not dead. This is by far, for me, the biggest piece of information. Quinlan also converting very, very well between day 1 and day 2. Quinlan is still a very good deck, even though it has been on the decline. Kira, a little bit less so. Then this is the Akbar, that's just a one player. Then the Tarkin is also only one deck. Aiden versus also one deck. So then the rest is kind of less significant because we are dealing with very small quantities. On Vader Yellow, we have a bit of a mixed bag. His conversion rate is only slightly over 50%. So I think this could be related to the fact that there's a lot of people who play very casually the game, who just wanted to pick up a budget deck and made it very good. As far as the negative conversion rate from day 1 to day 2, without any surprise, Vader 1 is the least the worst performances, and the reason is simply because a lot of people are bringing this leader because they want to showcase, not because the leader is actually good. And there's going to be a lot of people, and obviously playing Vader 1 in a competitive tournament is shooting yourself in the foot, and you can see this in the number. As usual, Boba 4 does underdeliver. It's still, as I said, it's the most overplayed deck in the history of Star Wars Limited, meaning that it's a deck that sees far more play than it is actually good, and we see Boba Fett by any means necessary basically having really abysmal performance as it's been many, many times before. A lot less so, but still underperforming. We see Anakin. This is a surprise to me. I think Anakin is a very strong deck. We saw T85 recently winning a PQ with this deck. We see also in Europe many people winning PQs with Anakin, and even in the US, I believe. So Anakin underperforming is a little bit of a surprise to me. So yeah, it's a bit of a surprise to me to see this deck not performing as well. Moving on to, this is the once again, okay, this is the same thing than this. Okay, well, I guess we can move on to the top 8 then. Okay, first, before we get in top 8, I had a couple of honorable mention. Overall, once again, it's the same phenomenon as we saw in Richmond. When you look at the top 25 of tournaments that happen in Europe, you see a wide variety of different decks, and you see a lot of rogue decks, a lot of decks that you wouldn't consider meta making it to the top 25. In this event, very, very few. There are actually the gigantic majority of decks that actually made it to top 25s are top tier decks, and there's very few kind of very weird deck making it to even top 64. If you look at it, so it's very, very meta. It's a very meta top. It's a very diverse top 25 because the meta is very diverse, but it's a very meta top 25. I still went beyond top 25 and try to look for interesting decks to talk about. So this is what we're going to talk about here in this honorable mention. First of all, obviously, how could I not? I went from the least ranked to the most ranked, so I don't exactly know where I think it was like top 50-ish something. And this obviously really, really cool Admiral Akbar Colossus deck. So we saw Admiral Akbar Green taking on a tournament. This one is completely different. It's a Colossus deck. What can we say about it? I think it's a deck that is really trying to play around, trying to have like a very wide board, using putting those kind of units that are really, really weak bodies. Like you have like Frontier Trackers, you have Favorable Delegate, you got Admiral Yularen, which have very hard to kill bodies, but they're not really useful because they're 1/5s, and you just like keep tapping them every turn. Admiral Akbar, as weak of a leader he is in terms of deployment, he has one of the strongest token generation engine in the entire game. Pay 1 just to get a 2/2 is a really, really good deal. And if you have a deck that is built where you have a lot of just useless unit that you're willing to tap down, it makes it very powerful. So you get Outspoken Representative is another example of a card that you can just tap over and over again, just literally makes no difference. So I think it's a very interesting concept. You of course have Regional Governor, which is another card that you're just happy to just tap down over and over again. So a lot of very like tanky kind of useless units. Then there's a lot of really, really weird and wacky cards in there. There's a lot of Republic units, which are not so good. You got Infantry of the 212, which is literally just a 2/4 Sentinel for 3. This is literally strictly worse than Cloud City Guard. That is already not considered to be a very competitive card. But it is a Republic trait, which does turn on the Outspoken Representative. So that's probably the reason why he's playing it. Then we got a Republic Attack Bow, which is just a big body. If you manage to... this deck really is about trying to swarm the ball. It's really the proper coordinate deck with a lot of Republic stuff. You get for the Republic as an upgrade to really emphasize on the Republic. If you control 3 or more Republic unit, this upgrade costs 2 less to play, so it becomes a +2/+2 for 1 that gives Restore 2 on coordinate, which is you're supposed to have. So it's really a coordinate deck through and through. But obviously the most exciting part of this deck is obviously the 3 copies of Death Star Plan in the main deck. This card is really, really cool. The idea is you put this on one of your units, and as long as this unit stays alive, you can basically play your unit with a discount. So I can totally see games where this could just completely go out of control. In my opinion, if you're going to be playing this card in one of these decks, it has to be in a deck like this, because you put this on like a unit that has 1/5 or 1/4. It's not easy for your opponent to get rid of this in one turn. So you can really, really take over the game with that kind of thing, which I think I would have loved to see this in action. So yeah, very, very cool deck. Definitely something that I think is worth giving it a shot just because it's fun. Is it really competitive? No, it's hard to say. This player ended up with an 8-5 record, which is good, but not, unfortunately, that doesn't give us enough data to really say that this deck is legit. Moving on here with the Gram of Tarkin of Vika. I couldn't capture this deck, so I had to recreate it on SWDB. And this is the deck that Vika has been running. So Vika is a relatively famous player from Take the Initiative, that he's playing often in Take the Initiative, and he's been playing this deck to really good success. He's done really, really well with this deck. It is, honestly, on paper, not something that is earth-shattering. It's a very solid, good stuff card. He basically plays the best cards available in yellow, green, black. So you got your Cat Bane, you got your Vader, you got your Barrage, you got your and then he just plays a bunch of Imperial cards that obviously combined with the Gram of Tarkin's ability that allows you to stack experience token on them. Gram of Tarkin's ability is still very, very powerful. The only problem with Tarkin is the fact that he has a really bad deployment, but his leader ability is undeniably very, very powerful, especially when combined with Locking Time Phantoms, 7th Speed Defender, which this deck plays plenty of. So it basically played everything you would expect from... It combines basically and says, okay, I'm going to be playing all the great stuff that you had from the old Tarkin archetypes, the one that was playing Triple Dark Raid, and I'm going to basically replace it and put some really strong cards in it, and I'm going to make a deck out of it. Also, this deck is benefiting a lot from Victor Leader as well. I said it in the video when Victor Leader was full spoiled. I was like, this Victor Leader is going to be amazing in a Tarkin deck, and I think this is probably the biggest upgrade for this deck from the set 4. They also shuttle ST-149, which is an Imperial shielded unit that can be really, really oppressive when you start adding a lot of experience, and its when playability combined with its when defeated ability allows you to move tokens around. Is very useful in that kind of deck. So it's a really cool deck. And Vika has been doing very well for him. He's such a great player, and congratulations to him. I think he went, he was within top 20, 28, 29, something along those lines. Then we had this Bosk Hunting Spray, which came out as top 26. So I want to talk about it because we haven't talked too much about Bosk Green, and I think it's a legit deck. So this one, it's a version that plays Data Vault. So the inconvenience of running Data Vault in a Bosk deck is that Bosk really depends on his especially the Bosk green, even more so than Bosk blue, really depends on his bounties in order to take huge advantage in the rest of the game. A Bosk deck that doesn't find its bounties is significantly weaker. And obviously this deck is only running 9 bounties. There's no really many more good bounties you can run in the deck. Those 9 bounties are really the top, sorry, the Death Mark, the Price on Your Head, and the Bounty Hunter Quarry are really the best bounties you can run, and there's not really any ways to and obviously the fewer bounties you draw, the weaker your deck is gonna be. So also this is the kind of deck that usually like to skip on turn 1, like to basically depend is you passing turn 1, hoping your opponent plays a unit, and then play a bounty. If your opponent plays no unit, it's a pass, so it's good for you, and if you play a unit, you play a bounty, and then you... But let's say if your opponent plays an opening, and you don't actually find a bounty, and you don't have anything else to play, then you are at a strong disadvantage over your opponent. So there's a bit of randomness that come into this, especially when you're playing a 60-card deck, which does make it significantly harder to find your bounties. So that's the main criticism I would do to Bosk Green. But obviously the 3 extra HP is, on the other hand, the 3 extra HP is extremely beneficial, because Bosk Green, and generally speaking all green, black, red archetypes are really susceptible to aggro. They really don't like playing against aggro. They hate aggro because they don't have this color combination has some of the weakest turn 1 plays in the game, and they don't have a lot of healing, so it makes it very hard to play against aggro. So this is the reason why the 3 additional HP coming from Data Vault is very beneficial. So on one hand, it's a huge sacrifice, but it's also very beneficial. So I don't have a definitive answer to say whether Bosk should be running Data Vault or not, but it is definitely something that this is a choice that Leomats81 made for his deck list. So the rest of the deck is pretty much what you would expect here for a deck like this. It runs all the traditional strong plays in black, green, red. It has the tie dagger Vanguard, which I think is really strong in combination with Bosk ability, so that's a really smart choice. He has the punishing one, gets to ready the unit when unit with bounty gets killed. He also plays quite a few Sentinels to help against aggro with the Frontier ATT and the Phase 3 Dark Troopers you can fetch from Darth Vader. He also plays a lot of Bazine here, the Bazine out of aspect Bazine, probably to deal against aggro. Sorry, to deal against control, but that's an interesting choice because I feel like this color combination has other ways to deal with control which are a bit more efficient. But he also decided to play Executor in his deck instead of the traditional Relentless. Executor is definitely a strong option against control. Like whenever you play against control and this comes into play, if you don't have a no glory only result, this card is extremely annoying to deal with because it's going to generate 3 tokens and then it's also going to generate 3 tokens on death. And if you don't deal with it, it's going to generate more and more. So it is a really big pain in the ass to deal with for control. The problem is, unfortunately, Executor came out at the same time as No Glory Only Result, and No Glory Only Result counters Executor because he's going to come into play, going to generate 3 tokens, then you're going to play No Glory, you're going to kill the Executor, and you're going to generate 3 tokens of your own, and then those 3 tokens you generated can just trade with the opponent 3 tokens. And this way, you can it basically nullifies an 11 drop, which is just crazy good value. So that's the reason why Executor has not really been privileged, and I think Relentless is still a better anti-control option. At least until No Glory is as long as No Glory is played, Executor will have trouble finding a footing in the meta, I think. But he decided to make that choice. So it'll be interesting to know why he decided to do this. Maybe there's other considerations that I haven't made. But yeah, maybe he's baiting No Glory results on the Ruthless Raiders, and basically only when those have been played then does he play the Executor. But that seems to be a very difficult game plan to kind of action. I'm also quite surprised that he's running 2 copies of Traders in the main deck. On the sideboard, because when an opponent is going to be playing against Bosk, for sure he's going to bring in all the anti-upgrades in the world, so he's gonna have answers to Traitorous. But maybe the plan is to force the anti-upgrade on the cheap bounties early on in the game, and then once those have been played, then play the Traitorous. But once again, that seems like a pretty risky plan. So that's my opinion about this deck. It's a cool deck anyway, and happy to see it's some success. Moving on, this is the Darth Vader yellow of Yoda Killer. And this player came out 9th in the... he's the best performing Darth Vader in the tournament, and he came out just very, very short of top 8. He's the only 10-1, so 10 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw, that did not manage to make it to top 8. So that's a bit unfortunate. I think he took a bad intentional draw in the last round. Some players will try to take intentional draws in order to... intentional draws in order to guarantee themselves in top 8. You should not be taking an intentional draw if there's a chance that you might not making it to top 8 if you do that, and this is what happened with Yoda Killer. He took an intentional draw in last round and ended up missing the top 8, so that's a bit unfortunate. But I wanted to show his deck because obviously he's the highest performing Vader yellow, and he's the only deck that was really part of the meta that didn't really make it to top 8. So his deck is relatively classic. He's running all the stuff that we know and love. In this deck, he's running P38, which I don't think is part of every single Vader yellow. P38 is definitely something you don't see often. And this is definitely a card that I'm assuming is going to be really, really strong in a mirror match. He's also running 3 Stolen ATLer, which once again is a meta call. It's a kind of card that if you're playing against a deck that cannot deal with it, 4-5 for 3 is pretty legit. So that's some interesting... there's a couple of unique things about it. The rest of the deck is pretty much what you saw, and then you get the Droid Starfighter. I always find it amazing that we are in a meta where Droid Starfighter actually sees play. I find this absolutely incredible. But yeah, the 1-2 Saboteur, the Saboteur trait ended up mattering whenever it's a good unit to put an upgrade on. You can go Droid Starfighter turn 1, and then you can put a Wingline Victor team on it on turn 1, and then you end up with that 2-3 Saboteur. That can even grow bigger if you put like a Victor leader on it on something like that. So I think that's really cool. It also obviously get rid of shielded spaceship, that kind of thing. So I think it's a cool thing. It doesn't see play in every version, but and it's an additional. I think it's just to get like more 1-drop spaceship. It is definitely the worst of the 1-drop spaceship. As you can see, he's running 3 TIE Fighters, but this version is really, really focused on going for double 1-drop opening and really kind of abusing the turn 1. He's really trying to get double 1-drop opening almost systematically, which is pretty cool. I think it's a pretty good strategy, and there are certain decks that simply cannot deal with it. So my opinion on the deck is the same as always been. I think it's a very strong deck. It's very similar to Affinity if you're playing Magic the Gathering. Like, it's a deck that if your opponent doesn't have the right answers for it, it's going to roll over you and going to completely destroy you. And however, it's a very fragile deck. It's a deck that if you does have answers for the card that come out, it's going to be stopped. But one thing that is really strong about this deck, and the same is with Affinity, is that it requires very specific answers for this to be answered. And it's not the kind of card that you naturally put in your deck. So it's not like certain decks simply just suffer from specific card, but there's a specific card that almost everybody is already playing, while this card actually has an impact on meta because it forces the opponent to actually put those cards into his deck to actually counter them. So congratulations for Yoda Killer to make it to top 9, and we're going to now into the top 8. So top 8 first, we got the Quinlan of Nota Pod Asa. I think it was called Carlos in his real name, and he's playing a pretty standard version of Quinlan with the Guerrilla soldiers to put the pressure on his opponent. Yes, Quinlan Red is seeing less play than it used to. It's not the top deck, and this might be the biggest saving grace for the deck, because I think that, as we expected, once the meta started targeting this deck specifically, we saw the deck kind of like losing a little bit of ground. I think the deck is, generally speaking, Quinlan has suffered against a Data Vault deck. I think the Data Vault meta has been a kind of a big deterrent to Quinlan, but as you can see, it's still a very, very solid deck. It's a very, very powerful deck, and it's still making some really amazing results. Actually, the only deck in top 8 that you're gonna see twice is Quinlan. So the deck itself, not much to say about it. It's a very classic version. He's playing the pull down run in the sideboard. He's playing maybe a little bit more aggressive with the Guerrilla soldiers in the main deck. He's also playing the R2D2s as well. I think R2D2 is a great card if you are not expecting to be in the Tarkin Town meta, and since we are more moving away from the Tarkin Town meta and more moving toward the Data Vault meta, maybe the 2-4 stat line becomes really interesting and it becomes a body that's hard to deal with. So maybe some people are going to try to move away from the Crafty Smugglers and go to the R2D2 as we are kind of moving away from the Tarkin Town meta a little bit. Moving on to the next deck is going to be a Sabine green from Chrono from the K2OD team, and yeah, he's playing a very standard version of is playing a very standard version of Sabine. So he's running. I think the only originality of his version is like he's running one copy of Rebel Pathfinder instead of the third copy of Luke Skywalker. He's also not running any Chewbacca's, which I love because I hate Chewbacca. I think it's my least favorite card of the new set. So he's not running the Chewbacca, even though he's running the whole package of 6 turn 1 spaceship play. He's not running Chewbacca, and he's only running 2 Luke Skywalkers. So he's definitely light on the he's definitely lighter on the piloting kind of shenanigans. And he's running Rebel Pathfinder instead of a third copy of Luke Skywalker. Rebel Pathfinder is obviously an answer to all those 2/2 shielded that we see a lot to Crafty Smugglers, R337, and obviously Krennic. So Rebel Pathfinder does a pretty good job, even though you would expect Luke Skywalker to be the better card. One of the things that is a little bit annoying with Rebel Pathfinder is the fact that it is basically heroism colorless, means that you don't get any additional ability from Sabine, so Sabine Masterpiece. So whenever you're going to be playing Sabine Masterpiece with ECL, you're not going to get anything from that Rebel Pathfinder, and we all know that there's a huge difference between that this Sabine Masterpiece being able to get an extra experience token from a green unit being in play. So really cool, some interesting sideboard consideration as well with Open Fire. One copy of Open Fire is interesting. And then, yeah, the rest is pretty much what you expect. Sunday Peacekeeper is great in a mirror. Heroic Sacrifice in certain matchup. 3 Confiscates in the sideboard, so really respecting the upgrade decks, notably the hands, everything that plays around the pilots. I think the idea of this deck is to try to invalidate the enemy upgrade removal by basically running Luke Skywalker as its only pilot, but he's still playing Darksaber as a 3-of, so that's something that that is interesting. So cool version, and congratulations to Chrono. Moving on to Clipine, not sure how to pronounce this. He's running the Han Solo Blue, so this is a deck brought back from the grave. It used to be one of the most popular deck in early set 2 meta, and now it's coming back as the Tarkin Town are seeing less play. Of course, Django being banned, it means that there's only 2 Tarkin Town decks left in the meta, Quinlan and what's it called, and Cad Bane. And the fact that obviously those 2 Tarkin Town leaders are on the decline, they are seeing less and less play, means that there's more space for Han 2 decks in general to see play, and Han 2 Blue is one of the strongest one that people aren't really playing right now. Sorry about that. So what about the interesting things going on? So first of all, I have to say that this is a very anti-control version of the deck. He's running, it's basically a version of Han Blue that is built to target specifically the Kira decks. So we've seen the 3 copies of Sham Syndulla in the sideboard. We're seeing 3 Krayt Dragon in the sideboard. We're seeing the direct hit being played on top of the Fel Dragons. We are seeing also so this is a lot of anti-control tools. We're also seeing some really cool tech. So obviously Auto Rim Outlaw is amazing in Han Solo because it's a 3/2 shielded for 2, which is incredible. And you don't need to give up initiative, as opposed to in order to get a 3/2 shielded in a Kira deck, you need to be playing the Ablon Enforcer, and obviously this is a unit that's going to have bounty, that is going to make your opponent draw a card, and you're also going to have to require an extra action to make this happen. With Rim Outlaws, you can make a 3/2 shielded with Han Solo on turn 1 without having to spend an extra action, which is incredible. So yeah, it's a really cool deck, and it's a very, very strong deck, so it's not surprising to me that this is doing results. Beton from Team Enigma has been on this deck for a while, and has been doing very well with it. So another card I want to talk about is Phantom 2, a card that I never thought that would see play, but obviously I completely overlooked the fact that this card is, again, amazing with Han Solo. Any card that has grit has always need to be considered in a perspective, and here the fact you can drop a 5/1 for 2 on turn 1 in space can be incredibly powerful against a high number of decks. There's simply a lot of decks that just simply don't have an answer for this. I would advise him to go up to 3. This card is really, really amazing in this deck. Moving on to the next top 8 deck, it is another Quinlan Red. This one came out second of the Swiss round. And he's playing, once again, a pretty classic version of Quinlan. He's running the daring raids in this version, so there's a couple of changes. He's running the Falcon, that kind of thing. But overall, the overall idea of the deck is the same, so I'm not going to spend too much time about it. We all been seeing this deck over and over again, and having 2 Quinlan in the top 8 here is definitely significant in terms of saying, okay, well, this deck is still very much a thing. Moving on now to the top 4, we're gonna then go on to the Ray Data Vaults of Tada from Team K2OD. And this is a great deck. So there's a couple of interesting things about this version that was not in the traditional version that we saw emerging from Yosera in his tournaments in Liverpool, in Lille. Was it Lille or Liverpool? I forgot. Anyway, I think that was Lille. Sorry. And his deck is very interesting. So he has a lot of cool thing going on. So first of all, the 2 copies of Timely Interventions here. This is a deck that really does not have a lot of space. It does not have a lot of space presence, and was relying mostly on Entrench to kind of like stabilize the ground, the space arena. But Entrench is really good when your opponent is going like, play big unit, play a pilot on it, and then you want to stop this with an Entrench and completely block that off. And it's not doing really well against very wide space arena. So typically when I'm going to be playing against Vader. So Timely Intervention is a great answer to those kind of Vader decks, because you can put a bunch of 2/2 and it's really great at stopping a wide space board. I knew this card was going to see play, I knew this card had potential, and I'm glad to see some play. Another interesting card is the 2 copies of Cargo Juggernaut, which is a card I always thought was amazing. In this deck though, I'm not a massive fan because he's not playing a lot of blue cards. He's playing Yoda, Village Protector, Luke Skywalker, which is a very late game unit. So basically, realistically, there's only 4 blue units that he's going to be able to get HP on. Obviously, there's the leader deployment, and you're meant to be combining this with the leader deployment. But I can see a lot of situations where you just play Cargo Juggernaut and it doesn't heal you. So a little bit more skeptical on this, but it is definitely a good card in general, and if you get the heal, it's an amazing card. Moving on now to the spicy stuff, the 1 copy of Unity of Purpose. And this is definitely one of the decks that can really benefit from Unity of Purpose without having to build the entire deck around it. Obviously this is an out of aspect, so he's going to have to pay 8 resources, but since it's supposed to be a finisher, the fact that it costs 8 doesn't really make that big of a difference. And if there's one deck in the meta that can really go wide with a lot of very large units that are hard to kill, it is definitely Ray. He's playing very, very wide, a lot of ground units with different names. It is definitely one of these decks that can really, really take the opponent by surprise. It's one of those secret decks that can completely take someone off guard and completely just warrior. I would be interesting I will ask him the question, how many times has he managed to play Unity of Purpose? I'll be interested to know how many times that card has been relevant in his deck. So yeah, the rest of the sideboard is pretty much what you would expect. We'll move on to the next top 4 deck, which is the Han 1 green of Alexander, of Alex. So he's running the Han 1 green that has been played in set 4 over and over again. So the idea is like so there's basically 2 main game plan for this deck. There's the traditional Han green game plan where you go for a resupply early, and you go for early deployment on Han, and then you attack and you get your wing reinforcements, and you completely and you play your wing reinforcement on turn 3 or any of the 7 drops. And there's the other game plan that is basically based on the space, on space, where you basically play on turn 1 a space unit, a Falcon, an ATLer, or even like an A-Wing, and then you put a pilot on it and you go to start taking over the game like that. So as much as I despise this deck, I despise this deck because I was a big fan of Han Green in set 1. I love the value-oriented deck, like really kind of like value but can still play quick whenever it wants. This new iteration of the deck has made the deck a lot more cheesy, where you're just trying to take over the game by putting an unanswered pilot on something. And this deck is, even more so than other versions of the deck I've seen, is really relying on this. As you can see, he's playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 space unit. He's running the full package of pilot with Han Solo, Chewbacca, Oh no, he's not playing. Okay, he's not playing the Luke Skywalker, but he's playing the Pope. So yeah, I'm not personally a big fan of this deck in terms of like enjoyment of the game, but it's undeniably the correct way to play this deck. It's undeniably a very powerful deck, obviously. So you need the 3 Ultra Default Busters, the 3 Surprise Strikes, so really, really aggressive, but it still has the opportunity to play late, can still play the tech, can still play the Enfys Nest, the Han Solo on 7, and the Kira to block and kind of slow down the game. So I think this is the correct way to run this deck, because the problem is like if you're running a very value-focused hand-green deck, relying only on Om1 and stuff like this to kind of add value to the opponent, you're going to be lacking removal, you're going to be lacking abilities to get rid of very large units, so you need to be able to turn the switch and be able to play aggressive whenever you want to. And this is what this deck is capable of. It is the hand and green that we've seen in set 4 that has been doing very well throughout the season, so congratulations to Alex for making top 4. Finalists. So the finalist of this tournament was no other than Cad Bane. This was played by a player called Ray Tin, if I'm not mistaken, and he brought this beautiful Cad Bane red deck. This is a deck that a lot of people underestimate, and I think it's a very powerful deck. It's still a deck that does really well into anything that is not control. Unfortunately, it is really bad against control, and we saw this during the final when he played against Kira, and whenever he played against Kira, and there's just so much cool thing going on with this deck. So this version in particular, the only big thing that to note compared to a traditional version of Cad Bane is the fact that he decided to not play Ruthless Raider anymore. So my theory on this is that Ruthless Raider is great, but it can be a little bit slow sometimes, and it's supposed to be an anti-control card, but in the meantime, it basically gets hard-countered by No Glory Only Results, which does see play in every single control decks. So I think people are going away from Ruthless Raider because of that. I think this is why he went away from this. Personally speaking, but I'm not a Cad Bane expert, but personally speaking, I still believe that Ruthless Raider is incredible against control and mid-range deck alike. Even if, in my opinion, even if your Ruthless Raider gets no glory result, you still got like a 4-drop that deals 2 damage and turn battlefield effect. So I don't necessarily think it's the end of the world when that happens. Also, yes, people play no glory result, but they also play 6 card decks, so they might not even see the card. So in my view, I find this a little bit, and especially since he's going to be playing Lurking TIE Phantom in the sideboard, you often going to see Lurking TIE Phantom absorbing some of the no glory results, so then you can get your Ruthless Raider kind of free. So, interesting. Unrefusable Offer in the sideboard has also an anti-control control tech. I wonder how many times this card actually got played, and how was it actually good. Something I would like to see being played on camera. Unfortunately, we didn't get the chance to see that on camera, at least as far as I've seen. Anyway, cool deck, and congratulations to Ray Knott. I will have a small comments on some very shady play that he made during one of his games. I'll have a comment on this later on in this video. Moving on, we're going to talk about, of course, the champion list, which is none other than Wu from Team K2OD. He has his own YouTube channel, and therefore this is the best performance ever by a content creator in a tournament styles limited. Wu obviously is known to be a specialist of Kira Green. He loved the deck, he played the deck in a lot of major tournaments, and he usually does very well with them. And this time it is, of course, an amazing performance. He was almost undefeated in the Swiss round. He was undefeated day 1 with 10-0. He was then on day 2, he went into a 12, only lost his very last round. So an amazing performance for him. And his Kira deck. So his Kira deck, he's been grinding the deck a lot. He's even been sharing his deck list on his YouTube channel. So not only is he an amazing player, he's also someone who share ideas and help other players get better at the game. So that's something that it's a very high quality to get. He's someone that is like, he's not hiding anything. He's been showing off his deck list. There may be a couple of special deck tech that he hasn't shown, but I think who can blame him for this? I mean, obviously you need to keep your secrets as soon as you get into the list, and we're going to talk about them after. So the overall list is pretty much what you would expect from the Kira Green. You get the restock in the main deck. That card alone really makes the matchup a lot harder for hard control, so this is a really good choice in my opinion. It's only one slot in a 60 card deck, and it makes a huge difference against hard control. which you can see, of course, does see play sometimes. We'll see a couple of changes, one less Maul, one more Snoke, that's probably for the Vader kind of swarmy decks. Plays the Fel Dragon on top of the No Glory results, that kind of thing. I'm not going to focus too much on those kind of proportion because all this kind of change all around. I want to focus on this card, Agent Callus. So Agent Callus, I think, is a genius idea for this deck, and I explain why. The first thing I want to say is that Agent Callus is not unironically was the best 5-drop in Star Wars Limit for a long time, because obviously before the game came out, people were playing the game as the card were being spoiled by Fantasy Flight Games, and they were kind of a sort of a meta developing between each of those spoilers. And Agent Callus is a card that was spoiled about in October 2023, so about the time where I started playing Star Wars Unlimited, and for a pretty long while it was considered to be the best 5-drop available. You would see Boba players running Agent Callus and Bosk as the 5-drop that allows them to go for double untap with Bosk, so they could play 3-drop and stuff like this, with Boba, sorry, so they could play 3-drop. And there were a lot of 1/4s, like some R2s and C-3PO that you could snipe and draw cards from it. It was just really meta in this very specific moment. And then obviously then Battlefield Marine got spoiled, and then Agent Callus completely disappeared. And it's really funny to see this card reappearing almost a year and a half after this card was meta, even though we are now in a meta where there's just a lot more cards, where just the environment is just far more competitive. So why does Agent Callus is in this deck? The main inconvenience of Agent Callus is that with only 4 attacks, he really can't really kill anything. At least as he comes out on 5. His stats for his cost are really, really bad. But he comes out on the same term as Kira does, and obviously Kira has these faculties of reducing by half health every single unit in the game. Which means that once Kira has been deployed, you usually can ambush with Callus, and Callus will usually be able to kill almost anything, no matter how big it used to be. And even better, there's actually a lot of units that only have 3 attacks, all the 3/5s in the game, and obviously all the 3/7s in the game, like the Quinlan, basically every single 3/7, which is a very popular stat line, which means that Agent Callus can come out, kill those leaders, and draw your card. Another thing that's very important to mention is that Kira was a deck that sometimes was struggling against Quinlan because it was lacking card draw. The only real card draw that you have in this deck is Pershing, and Pershing is just incredibly easy to deal with for Quinlan. So this deck could sometimes struggle by just running out of gas and just relying on top deck to kind of win the game. And this card kind of answers that, because it's a card that draws you a card, will answer Quinlan after Kira deployments, and will draw you a card in the process, which is incredible. So I'm pretty sure this is an anti-Quinlan deck, even though I'm sure it works in other matchups. So this is a really great piece of find, and it's really cool to see such this. When I see this card, it really brought me back to those days. And also another interesting thing as well is Wu is one of these players that actually played in those times, that played back in October, November 2023, where we were actually grinding out the game and I actually played Wu in tournaments back in those days. It was really a small community, so it really brought a lot of memory back, a very positive nostalgia memory. So it's really, really cool to see that. Okay, I think enough about the deck. I think we've seen the deck enough, and this leads me to I just want to let you know that you can pick up U-Wing Reinforcement for €1. U-Wing Reinforcement is seeing a lot of play now in those Ray value decks, and being able to pick up such a powerful card for only €1, it's on card market, guys. Okay, moving on now to a bit of a controversy. I mean a fully blown controversy. I think it is the game concession controversy. So before I start this conversation, I just want to say that I have immense respect for the team K2OD. They are undeniably the highest performing team in the US, and nobody can take that away from them. They are all amazing players, and the performance of the K2OD team in this tournament is absolutely undeniable. You got 4 K2OD players in top 8, and I think they would have been able to do extremely well even without those game concession shenanigans, which I'm going to exposing first in this video. But I need to talk about it. I'm not trying to point fingers at anybody. Obviously, in this case, it's the K2OD who actually did use those kind of shenanigans, so this is what I'm going to talk about. But I'm not trying to point fingers at them. I'm just trying to say, okay, this is a thing that is possible to do in the game. How do we want the game to evolve? Why is this thing good for the game? Do we want this to keep happening? What can we do as a community to change that? And what FFG should do in order to prevent this from happening again? So once again, I'm not trying I'm not trying to steer controversy just for the sake of steering controversy. I'm trying to really have a conversation about whether or not this kind of stuff is a good thing or not. So let's talk about it. First of all, facts. The facts are that Alex voluntarily conceded to Wu in the semi-final, and they're both teammates. The second fact is that Alex has wrote a statement saying that he was not feeling well and that the prize wasn't worth it for him. So he decided to say, whatever, I'm just going to concede. I'm just being in pain. This prize is not worth it for me. I'm going off, and I'm going to be conceding to my teammate. That's what he says. Moving on, he also defended himself, saying that it was not done in order to give Wu a better matchup into the final, because he considered that his matchup into Cad Bane is very good anyway. So he was very confident in his ability to win the final. So this did not influence his decision to concede to Wu. That's his statement. So that's the fact. So this is first of all the fact, the basic fact, and this is the what Alex basically said publicly. So this is what the bracket looked like. So as you can see, there is one K2AD player here. So Wu wins against Carlos, Alex wins against Cole. This is the game where both K2AD players won on the side, and on the other side, there's a K2OD player, which is John, and there's the only non-K2OD player was not in top 4, which is Raytan with Cad Bane. So in this example, Wu and Alex know that that no matter what, the only non-K2OD, their objective, of course, as a team, is to make sure that someone in the team wins the tournament. One of those 3 players wins the whole tournament. So obviously the best way to do this is to say, well, worst case scenario is Raytan wins the semi-final. So worst case scenario, we're going to be facing a Cad Bane. So that's kind of like the thought process. So who has the better matchup against Cad Bane? Is it Kira or is it Han 1? So Alex is pretending that didn't influence the decision. He thinks his deck has a really good matchup into Cad Bane. But I would argue, and I think most people would argue with me, that Kira has a far better matchup against Cad Bane than Han 1 Green has. And I think anybody who's honest would agree with that. So now let me give you my opinion about this whole controversy thing. First of all, there were also another fact. There were also some other team arrangement done in the last round of Swiss. This is a quote from the tournament from one of the casters of the late night gaming. He says, the K2 guys were trying to make sure Chrono got his bye, so their plan was to draw with each other and then played against anyone else to try to knock them out of top 8. So there was some sort of team arrangements in the last one of Swiss to basically help Chrono making it to top 8. And I have the link. I would put the link of the video of this statement. So there was also some other kind of other shenanigans going on in the background. So let's give my opinion about this. The first thing I want to say is that I find it hard to believe that Alex conceded to Wu solely because he didn't like the prize and because he was not feeling good. And there is multiple reasons why I have trouble believing that version of the story. Oops, sorry about that. The first reason is the KDOD team, especially Alex, has been known for conceding to one another on multiple occasions in the past, even in top 8s of PQ. So obviously this happened in PQ. You would see Alex conceding to Bobby Sapphire, for example, to give him more chances to be able to get his world invite. That kind of thing, that kind of shenanigan. So the fact that he's been known for doing this makes it hard to believe that he wouldn't be willing to do this again to Wu. So it makes it hard whenever it's been done in the past for the reason of benefiting their team. I find it hard to believe that in this tournament specifically, he did it just because he was not feeling well. Secondly, the concession of Alex clearly gives a significant advantage to Wu. There's two advantages that Wu gets from this. The first one, he gets a 1 hour 30-minute break between the semi-final and the final. That's huge. The final is by far the most taxing game because this is the last game of the event. It's also the most important one. So having a huge break of 1 hour and a half between the semi-final, between the quarterfinal and the final is massive. So that's another thing. Obviously, I want to be really, really clear. It doesn't mean at all that Wu is not deserving of his win. That doesn't mean this at all. But it just means that he got a significant advantage from that. The other undeniable advantage is that the fact that obviously Kira has a far better matchup into Cad Bane than Han 1 does. And that's not even close. Another factor as well is that also Kira versus Han is one of the worst. Han 1 Green is also one of the worst matchup versus Kira. So I think that if this game would have been played out, there's a good chance that Alex could have won. Obviously, nobody knows. Nobody will ever know. But there's also a factor as well. It's also kind of a bad matchup. Kira into against Han Green, it's kind of a bad matchup for Han Green, especially since we're talking about a Kira player that does not play a single Traitorous. We know how important Traitorous is in this matchup. That kind of thing. So, there is that. I think if it was really a health issue, I think he would have conceded right away from top 8. It's kind of convenient that he happened to actually concede against his teammate specifically, while he would have had the opportunity to, if he was really in pain, to literally just concede the top 8. And there's really not a big difference in pricing between top 8 and top 4. So why specifically did he concede in top 4 instead of why he could have conceded in top 8? And finally, he also claims that winning the tournament doesn't matter to him. But I find this once again a little bit hard to believe that a competitive player would be willing if winning the biggest tournament ever held in the US doesn't matter to you, then I don't know what does. Honestly, I just don't understand this decision. But that's on a different level. It also, once again, it kind of emphasized the fact that I think there's definitely other things that came into play than just him being not feeling well. Let's put it that way. So with all that being said, once again, I'm going to reiterate every time because I'm sure a lot of people are going to pick up on this. Alex did an amazing tournament. He had an amazing tournament. His performance is amazing. In my opinion, he could have taken all the entire tournament if he didn't concede top 4. He had a good matchup against into Kira. But he decided to kind of in my opinion, he decided to privilege the team. He decided to give more chance for one of his teammates to win the entire thing rather than giving himself more chance to win. So he played a different game than everybody else is playing. He's playing the team game while everybody else is playing the solo game. And I don't think that's a good thing for the game, and I'll explain why. I also want to emphasize that what Alex did is allowed by the rule. Therefore, he cannot be labeled as a cheater. A cheater, by definition, is someone who breaks the rule. Is someone who breaks the rule in some way. If he didn't break any rules, so he's not a cheater. So I don't want to hear about this. I just want to have a calm conversation about whether we think team play like this is good for the game or not. I don't want to have to hear in the comments people saying he's a cheater, blah, blah, blah. No. Okay. With that being said, I think it's very important to have a conversation on whether I think things like this should be allowed in the game or not. And my opinion is, if this kind of practice is allowed, it needs to be specifically said by FFG. Because then everybody can play by the same rule. Okay, are we playing the team game? Then let's label this a team game. Let's everybody puts everybody in team, and start playing the team game. Maybe one of the how about like having rules where you can have up to 5 players in a team in the tournaments and stuff like this. And let's really embrace that. Let's really embrace that, and let's make everybody play by the same rule. I personally don't think it's a good thing for the game. I think the game should stay an individual, a solo game, but it is a route that we can take. And I'm gonna give my opinion on why I believe turning Star Wars Limited into a team game is not a good thing. So those events are not team events. So basically the problem with that is like being a team should not grant you all the benefits than just having a training group of friends that share knowledge. I think for me, this is what a team should be about. It should be about a group of people who are friends, who are playing games, train together and share ideas. I think it shouldn't be anything beyond this. Once the tournament starts, whether you're playing against a teammate or not a teammate should not influence the way you play the game. And my opinion is like it's a matter of fairness. I think everybody plays by the same rules. Everybody plays by the same objectives. And you end up in a situation where it's all about who is the better player. I mean, who is the better performer in that specific event. Because if you start introducing that kind of thing, it creates a gap, it creates a divide, it creates an unfairness between people who have team of very high performing players and people who don't. And I'm saying this even more comfortably that I'm part of Team Enigma, which I believe is one of the highest performing team in Europe. So obviously I would want this to be beneficial for me. So I could use it to my own benefit, but I don't think that's good for the game. I don't think that's good for the game. Because let's say you are the Cat Bane player and you realize that on the other side, there are people who are agreeing. Maybe they're not agreeing, once again, maybe he was really feeling bad, but let's say if that person really says, okay, well, those players put forward the best deck against you, it doesn't feel fair. It doesn't feel fair. You would feel cheated. You would feel that it's unfair because you want to be playing against the person who won the game. You don't want to be playing against the worst matchup for you. So, you see the problem here? So it sucks. Another argument for this is that it sucks for the viewers. People are lining up to see top 4, the highest stake games in the event, and also we had the chance, thanks to the McClunky Late Night Gaming, Sea Raptors and Late Night Gaming and Take the Initiative, that we had 2 streams streaming both games, and the fact that we will never be able to see that game and we only see half of it, we only see one of the top 4, that's also very unfortunate for the viewers. It's very awkward for a viewing experience, and I don't think FFG should encourage that. So it sucks for the viewers, and it sucks for people who are on the receiving end of this, that don't have a team they can benefit from in this way. So that's my opinion. I think it's a negative thing, and I think eventually it should be removed out of the game. So, another thing that I want to say, closing statement on this. K2OD is a great team, and they are undeniably the highest performing team in the US. In my opinion, they don't need that kind of shenanigans to win. I'm really certain that even without any of those arrangements, any of those game concessions in the top 4, I think they would have done very well anyway. And I'm really confident that the result would have been pretty close to what we got if they didn't make any of that stuff. So they are really good players. They don't need those kind of shenanigans to win. So why would you do it? Why would you damper your reputation? Why would you make a stain on your performance and making it sound and kind of like creating this kind of controversy where you don't have to? Is really like ultimately winning that important? Like, is it really making it so your team wins that important? Why? It's just a card game. Just play it out. We are here. I think like it's just like it's such a weird conception. Like maybe it's a cultural difference, but in Europe I find this so weird. It's a card game. There's as Alex admitted, there's nothing on the line. There's literally no much benefit. I mean, there are high prizes, but the prizes are not gonna change your life. So why would you do sub-practice in order to kind of take an advantage over other people, even so slim? Like, why would you do it? Just be great players that you are. Go out there, perform, and win. Like, is it really worth it? Like, I'm asking you guys, like, you guys, is it really worth it? Is it really worth it to do those kind of shenanigans? Just play the game. Play the fucking game. So, my final statement is like, let's keep the game clean and play game fair and square. No shenanigans. Just play the fucking game. And you guys are amazing player. You will be able to win just as well without any of that bullshit. Okay, I've said what I had to say. Now it's kind of on FFG's end to kind of see what they want to do. I've also heard that yes, in other games, team arrangement like this do happen, but I've never seen. I've been following Magic the Gathering competitively for more than 20 years, guys. For more than 20 years, and I've never seen someone conceding a top 8 spots in a large tournament ever. So the equivalent of what would be a regional qualifier in Magic would be either a Grand Prix for the old times and for the newer time, the Magic Fest. I've never seen someone conceding such a high spot in a tournament in favor of his teammate. You would see small arrangements, things that would happen maybe in Swiss, but you would never see something of that scale. So that, in my opinion, is a big deal and needs to be addressed by FFG in one way or another. Once again, huge congratulations to KTOD for their performance, and I once again will want to emphasize that they are a great team and that I think they would have done very well regardless. But I think this whole controversy is a discussion we need to have. It's not about pointing fingers, it's about having that conversation and kind of think about, as a collective, what we're going to do about this or not. Moving on, there were also some cheating allegations, some cheating happening in a game. This was in the final, Ophir versus Ray. And what happened is that Ray played his Jabba the Hutt, and he looked at the top 8 card of his deck. And instead of shuffling them and putting them back at the bottom of the deck, he decided to stack, so take a specific card, in this case that was a Cat Bane, and put it in the top of the deck and then put it in at the bottom. So I will make a video about cheating in general in Star Wars Limited to give more my opinion on this. In this particular occasion, in many games, whenever you look at to the deck and you put the card at the bottom, usually you can put them in any order. That's how it works in Magic, but that's not how it works in Star Wars Limited. You're supposed to be shuffling them and then putting them at the bottom. Obviously, the fact that he was putting the Cat Bane on top, the way he was doing it, honestly, I'm gonna be honest, the way he was doing it, I don't think was shady at all. He was doing it right in front of his opponent. I legitimately think that Ray did not know that he was supposed to shuffle those cards back, even though it is written on the card. But I legitimately think that he legitimately knew that worked like this, because that's how it works in other games. That's how it works in Magic. So the thing is, though, the first time around he didn't get caught. He did it the second time, and once again he's doing it on camera. He's not trying to hide it. He's doing, and then on the second time, Wu finds it and says, "Oh yeah, you should be shuffling those cards and putting back at the deck." And this is something I want to talk about in that other video. But the fact that that's all it happening is just, "Oh yeah, okay," and then he does it and no problem. I think that's a little bit weird. I think that's there should be some sort of penalty for doing things the wrong way. So once again, I'm pretty sure this was just an honest mistake from Ray. I'm sure that he thought the card was working like that, because it wouldn't make any sense to try to cheat so blatantly, especially for such a small advantage, because that's very, very little chance that you're actually going to get to the point where you're going to be actually drawing that card anyway. So that's I wanted to address that specific point. Coming back to normal meta-analysis, what can we learn from this tournament? The first thing we can learn is, like, there's no major surprise. Pretty much all 8 decks that we saw in top 8s were meta decks that are well known, and even if you expand this to top 25, the vast majority of the decks that you're going to see are pretty standard meta decks. So I think the meta has reached a certain maturity, and it's a really, really good meta. It's a really, really good meta. I say it's one, I wanted to say it's a good one. It's a great meta. It's a very, very diverse meta. It is a very data vault meta. It's going to be remembered as the data vault meta, but I don't think that's an issue on its own. I think it's a great, great meta. There's a good balance between the different archetypes, and there's a wide amount of decks you can play. I think it's a great meta. and it's been confirmed here. Another thing is that Cad Bane is still a valuable deck. It's one of the highest performing deck of the event. Cad has done very well, and I think it comes as a surprise to many people because people were seeing a lot this deck in the decline. And we can also say the same thing to Quinlan to a lesser extent. Another one is that hand 2 is on the rise, benefiting from the decline of Quinlan. The fact that people play Quinlan less, the fact that people play Cad Bane less, is really strongly benefiting hand 2, and we're seeing hand 2 doing some great performances in the event. Anyway, thank you so much, guys, for listening to that very long video. If you got any thoughts on the tournament itself or on the concession controversy, let me know. Let's have that conversation. Once again, guys, try to be respectful. No, don't try to call names or try to point fingers. Just try to give your opinion on whether you think it's a good thing or bad thing for the game, and maybe give your opinion on what you think should be done to address that issue. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.